Hi everyone, good afternoon. Merry meet. I'm going to be trying these Facebook Live videos, we're trying different things, different ways to do things. So if you're just now joining us, welcome. I'm gonna give it a few minutes to let people come on in and join us. Now I'm gonna try and keep track of comments as best as I can. Hi Ashley. And if some of my COG friends are watching, they can also help with the comments, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on the comments as well. All right. Blessed be. All right. Hi, Michael. Hi, Nanette. Hi, blessed be. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Peter. Merry meet. All right. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Brandon, and I am a member of COG, Covenant of the Goddess, through my coven here in New Mexico. And I am currently the outreach officer for COG. And so welcome. Robbie from Belgium. Wow. Yeah, we've got people from all over. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just kind of ground and center myself. So I'm going to light some incense just to help set the mood. See if it will stay lit. All right. Hi, Brian from Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us. Merry meet. And it did not stay lit. All right, so that should work. All right, thanks for joining us. Hi, Isabella from Brazil. Hi, Brenda. So today I invite you to listen, and if you'd like, go ahead and you can like the video, you can share the video right now with your friends so they can also watch. So what we're here today, today is actually the 51st anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, and which took place in 1969. So this event was specifically an event that sparked the LGBTQ movement for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. So I wanted to talk about that, about what happened, and why it's still so important today. So I want to take a moment to call the guardians of earth, air, fire, and water, guide us and help us to be where we need to be in these dark times. Help us to understand, learn, listen, and be courageous. Whether you are an LGBTQ person or an ally. So I want to take a moment to invite some gods and goddesses that I felt were relevant. As you can see, for some reason today, the Egyptian gods called to me. So I invite Horus to be with us. He's on the right. He is well known as an LGBTQ god. So there are many stories, and many of them remind us of the importance to be proud of who you are and not to be ashamed of who you are if you're an LGBTQ person. So I invite you to comment what are some other gods or goddesses, spirits, or ancestors who may be lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. Be with us and guide us. I also invite Ma'at. She's in the middle there. She is the goddess of justice, the goddess of truth and balance. She's here to remind us that The fight is still going on today for LGBTQ rights, and that there is still so much injustice in the world, and it needs to change. So I invite you to comment, what are some gods, goddesses, and spirits or ancestors who remind you of truth, justice, righteousness, perhaps a warrior god or goddess or spirit, and bringing balance to the world. I ask you to be with us and guide us. All right, so thank you guys for joining us today. So as you can see on the altar today, so we have a broomstick, and that's just a visual reminder of our duty as witches, Wiccans, pagans, to help sweep away all the negativity from the world. Any kind of doubts or shame that you may feel for who you are as a person, we work to sweep away all of that and ground ourselves today. So many of us, we're going to get a dose of air today, so the element of air. Air is about knowledge and wisdom. And today I want us to learn about what actually is Stonewall and who are some of the key people that we remember and why they're still relevant today. Yes, Ishtar, be with us. Morrigan, be with us. Yes, blessed be. So let's dive right in. So as the days leading up to the riot, it was illegal to be openly gay, lesbian, and transgender. Drag queens were arrested, so because it was illegal to cross-dress, to dress as what many perceive as the opposite sex of who you are. And so on June 28, 1969, the Stonewall Inn in New York was raided by police around 1:20 a.m. So as people were being taken away, there was a voice of, her name was Stormy De La Veree, a black lesbian from New Orleans who shouted at everyone to resist. And then the LGBTQ people finally decided to resist and fight back for their rights. So they were in the streets, they were rioting, they were turning cars, stopping traffic, and which that itself began the birth of a movement for all LGBTQ people all around the world to continue to gather and resist oppression. So 40 years later, in 2009, the President Barack Obama declared LGBTQ Pride Month, and we continue to have demonstrations today for justice, for acceptance, because we're still fighting for those rights. So Stonewall really sparked that widespread social change for LGBTQ acceptance. So according to one article, it was written in The Wild Hunt, and it states that, so it's correct, especially in our pagan understanding, to acknowledge the work of our ancestors and the accomplishments they achieved that bring us to the present. They tore down the laws that made homosexuality illegal. They ended the witch hunts, essentially, for LGBT people in their jobs. They eliminated many elements of social discrimination against LGBTQ people, and they even depathologized us in medicine, psychiatry, psychology, nursing, and social work. And I'm going to go ahead and share the link to the article so you guys can also see it, and I'll comment that here in a bit. It was written by Manny, who is also another member of COG. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in the comments for you guys. It's a great article to read. And The Wild Hunt is a great a news source, of pagan perspectives, and it's a nonprofit. Wonderful for us to read. And it does look like ISIS. It does. I do see that. However, one distinction that helps is she's got the Ma'at will usually have her feather above her head, and that's the feather of truth, the feather that you would weigh your heart with in the afterlife to help judge the afterlife. So they do look very similar. Isis usually wears a different kind of crown on her head. All right, so I want to take a moment to remember some of the important figures that were a part of the Stonewall Riots and the early LGBTQ movement. And then one figure that came later. So I have some pictures here that we'll add to the altar. And so we remember Stormy De La Veree. There she is right there. She helped to ignite the crowd to action against police brutality. So it usually helps to have someone to help light that fire so that we can fight back when we need to. So we'll put her on the altar here. We also remember Marsha P Johnson, who identified as gay. She's on the left right there. As gay, she identified as trans and as a drag queen. So she reminds us of the diversity that exists within the LGBTQ community. She reminds us that drag queens were some of the most vocal people in the LGBTQ community. Even today, drag queens are usually seen as outspoken, confident, colorful, and looked up in our community. Marsha reminded us that we all have a voice and can speak out when injustice, violence, and murder is happening at extremely high rates to LGBTQ people, especially to trans women of color. Now, we remember her death because it was unjust. Specifically, the police ruled her death as a suicide, and they didn't investigate the case further, or they didn't give it the attention that it should have deserved. So to really understand what her death was, it was at the hands of hate. It was a hate crime, and it reminds us to speak up when the police and our government wants us to stay quiet. So we also remember the lady on the right, that's Silvia Rivera. She's another outspoken transgender activist. And along with Marsha, she co-founded the Star House, which was an organization that helped homeless LGBTQ youth. She reminds us of the struggle of many LGBTQ youth who are rejected and disowned by their families. She also reminds us of the rejection that trans people face from their own community, how trans people have often felt left out of the movement, despite being some of the most outspoken since the beginning. We remember from her to keep fighting for the most oppressed people who are at risk of violence in our community, for lesbian, gay, and trans people of color who may be poor, homeless, or suffering from substance abuse or mental illness. So let's go ahead and add them to the altar here. So those are two very important people towards the beginning of the movement. So we also remember a more recent person. We remember this is Nettles. So she was a trans woman who was beaten to death. Her case is one of the most recent cases where her murderer used the gay or trans panic defense as a defense. And this is used when, in this case, when a male perpetrator of violence against a trans woman, they claim insanity or irrationality once they learn that a woman that they were attracted to or involved with is transgender. So she reminds us that there is still strong homophobia and transphobia in the world. And there are still people who use this defense to justify violent assault or even murder against LGBTQ people. What would have happened if he had just admitted his attraction to this trans woman, or simply say he was not interested anymore and just walk away? She reminds us that there was a better, more peaceful way to confront homophobia and transphobia. All right. There's so many other countless names of LGBTQ activists that we can comment on who have lived out their lives, and others who died too soon for just being who they are. I want to take a moment of silence to just remember them, and feel free to comment any stories or any people that you feel were impacted by this in a similar way. And I'm going to go ahead and light this candle here. See if it will stay lit. Listen to the stories of the people. Yes, Elizabeth. Blessed be. A great way to get rid of negative energy is, I always just use sage. Sage is very cleansing. It's cleansing the air. It's cleansing the negative energy of the space. And it helps you to ground too. And any kind of incense helps me to ground. And sage is wonderful cleansing energy for when you're feeling either personally you need to be cleansed or your home. So that's a lot to take in. That's a lot of history. It's a lot of history. So there's many questions for us to think about. So how can we, as pagans, witches, Wiccans, show our support for LGBTQ people? So feel free to comment. So what are you already doing in your communities? Can we do more? What can we do to help? Why do we protest? Why do we riot? So these are questions. So protests, they exist when there is injustice, when there is civil unrest, when the police or the government, they choose to perpetrate violence and bigotry by remaining silent, by encouraging the people to remain silent, working against us, or working to reverse laws and protections that LGBTQ activists since Stonewall, they worked so hard to pass, and having to continue that fight to make sure that the laws are still for the people, for the LGBTQ people. Overall, people's lives are being lost too soon at the hands of violence and oppression, and that includes the high rates of suicide. So the Wiccan Rede, some of you may be familiar with some of the words of the Wiccan Rede. It states, "In perfect love and perfect trust." How can we have perfect love and perfect trust in a system that people do not trust? "And ye harm none, do as ye will. Ever mind the rule of three, what ye send out comes back to thee." How can we harm none when many people are silent? We have to speak up. We have to, or there will continue to be harm. So what you can do depends on what you're comfortable with. So where you are in your journey, find out how you can get involved and help your community in any way that you can, especially during these times where people are alone, they feel isolated. That's one of the reasons that we're doing these videos, is to help people to feel more connected and to be able to feel like they can do something. If you can go out safely, please do. Or if you can't go out, you can do things inside. You can educate yourself. I'll be honest, as a gay man, I'm a gay man. And even I needed to educate myself on, I've always heard about Stonewall. I've always known that it was important in our history, but I never really paid much attention to what it really was. So this was very beneficial to me, and I hope that it was beneficial to you to just learn a little bit about the history of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans people. And you know, there's so much you can do. There's so many organizations that you can donate to. I even just read recently that the Stonewall Inn is at risk for closing because they're needing donations because of the COVID-19, because of the virus, that they've been closed. And so there's so much you can do, so much research that you can do, documentaries you can watch. So just be a light for an LGBTQ family member, a friend, a coworker. Be a true ally. And what that means is not just knowing somebody who's lesbian, gay, bi, trans, but advocating for them. Be there for them. Be a light for them. Blessed be. Blessed be. So that's a lot to think about and a lot to reflect on. And yeah, we are pagans. We are either pagans, we're witches, Wiccans, we're powerful people. What we can do, if we can all work together to create change in the world, we can. And we know we can. So, blessed be. I wanted to thank you guys for joining us. I wanted to let you know that the next event that we have coming up is going to be on July 1st at 5:30. That's Pacific Standard Time. And that's going to be our Wednesday with Witches and COG conversation. And that's going to be a Zoom meeting. So if you go to our event page, you'll see some of that. You'll see that event on there, and you can register for the event. And it's going to be a great way to, you know, it's great to see you all commenting, but it's just great to see. If you don't want to show your face, that's perfectly fine. But if we can hear you and interact with you and really just have a conversation and talk about what's important to us. So be on the lookout for more events in July and August. So we have a full moon coming up around the 4th of July. And so in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to email me. My email is outreach@cog.org. And if you have any questions at all, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to keep commenting. I have some of my COG friends helping with the comments, and I'll be able to look on there and see what everybody says and try to interact with everybody. So I want you to remember that we have a call to action as witches, Wiccans, pagans, that we're powerful. Look inside your lives and find a way to educate yourself, be involved, and be a voice, a light for your community. Blessed be. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. So I will see you all next time, and merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Blessed be.